to do in this period of time that we have, and then we can open up for questions, is tell you a little bit about the BGU experience over the last couple of months, how we've come through the crisis. And as I think probably most of you know, Israel is probably ahead of North America in terms of walking away from some of the restrictions. There's some releases of lockdown, and the university this week began to look again like a university we all know and love so much. And in fact, even today, I took a break from my office and walked.
To be chosen. Now, I actually want you to think about this a moment. And since this is Zoom, we're going to try it this way. If you can actually click on the chat at the bottom of the screen, and actually write.
Snooky, we're getting your Snooky. Please mute your Snooky. Please mute yourself.
Like Mordechai Kaplan would have said, "What kind of question is that?" Or you could say,
Snooky, please mute yourself.
The traditional way, or choseness
Sorry.
is, choseness is just that we have a role to serve this world, what you think it is. Just a few sentences, if you feel we'll do it in the chat.
Okay. Okay, sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Oh, I thought that was Hebrew University crashing into our party.
No, it's Hebrew Union College probably. She takes a course, but it's close.
Okay. Anyway, so things have been released a little bit, and in fact today as I walked around the campus, it was great to see a few more students coming to attend labs and things like that. But let me take you back a couple of months ago, and in fact in the last week of February, when Israel began to sense what was about to come to meet us, our president, who I think you've all met, Daniel Shamovitz, convened an internal task force to look to see how the university would be able to handle the unknown, essentially. So very quickly, the university equipped itself with masks and with alcohol gel and all of the things like that. The security people prepared precautions. We already began talking about social distancing in the last week of February, before that term was known anywhere. And so as we went into March, the university was beginning to get prepared for itself for all sorts of eventualities. And then that first week of March was quite dramatic, and everything accelerated very quickly. And our president sat with a few staff and said, this is not about us. This is about the larger community. It's about Beersheba. It's about Israel. It's about the world. And put out a request for proposals from our researchers saying, we've got a crisis coming. It's called Covi-19. This may even be before the name was known as much as it's known today. Anybody who has a research idea in prevention, treatment, community awareness, etc., I'd like you to send me an email, and B, on Thursday, this was the 12th of March, I believe, we're going to meet in a room to see if we can share some of the ideas. This was 2 days before. On the Thursday, I turned up to the room, he was there, and 50 researchers, the best researchers, including the ones you just mentioned, came into this room with pages and pages and pages of ideas, looking for people to collaborate in different aspects of the research they wanted to do. Everybody, it felt as if everybody in Ben Gurion University was able to help. And so this task force, which was the coronavirus task force to seek solutions, began work without any money initially. Danny took a few dollars that were excess in the university and said, look, start working, we'll see what we can do. And myself and some of my colleagues and Major Mendelsohn and his peer in the United States and every other country said, we're not going to let these researchers not do their research because of funding. And we put our heads together, put some papers together, and went out and started raising money. The reality is today, and Mark, you don't even know this number, the university has raised $400,000 US for this effort. which is an
I will.
incredible sum globally, from Canada, who has been very generous, from the United States, from England, from France, from Israel, from Switzerland, $400,000. Now, what happened with these $400,000, and Mark will remember this well, I would, for each of our colleagues, and by the way, there was a point when, you know, I was at home as well during that first few weeks. And so my wife turned around and said, you know, with all due respect, this is the time when we were supposed to be held together. Who is this guy, Mark Mendelson, you're talking to more than you're talking to me? But basically what we did was I would say to Mark in the morning, how much came in since last night? He would say $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. I would make a phone call to Danny. I'd say we just got another 2,000 from Canada, or we got 3,000 from the US, etc., etc. He would look at a chart, call up a researcher and say, you've got the green light for $3,000. So we worked literally around the clock, I would say from hand to mouth, in order to get these research projects doing. I think probably, I haven't been in the university for 50 years, but I can probably say it was one of our finest moments. This was a global effort that you were all part of that helped Israel's finest researchers in Ben Gurion University come up with solutions that are actually being put into place all over. And I'm not going to go into them, but Mark and Simon can provide you with a document with a list of all these research initiatives that we took and the progress. And we're actually, a month and a half in, we've now got some of the results of the progress, and some of them are really tangible. I'll give you just an example. One of our projects run by Tomer Hirt and Angel Porgador basically says testing can be done not only on an individual basis where a person comes in, a swab is taken, it gets put in a test tube, it goes away to lab, and maybe three days later results are made available. Testing can be done by pooling. And so basically what they did was they said, if we can analyze pools of test results, we can develop an algorithm so that we will know in a very large sample of people who has got the virus. So the same speed that you could have tested 8 people, his algorithm allows you to test 380 people, for example. And we purchased a robot with these funds that were made available by you and people like you, so that this process can be done automatically. So this week, as we were all driving to work in the morning, there was a radio announcement, as you probably the United States and in Canada have been dealing with, that talked about whether the football season will start. Now, when I say football, I mean the British Empire football. I mean soccer, and not that other game where you actually pick up the ball. And what's the problem? Like in sport all over the world, there's a great fear that sports activities getting back together, even without a crowd, people can be infected. And then Danny said, you know what, I've got an idea. He called up the head of the soccer union in Israel and said, what if we were to provide, we in Ben Gurion University were to provide you with a way of testing teams and their staff as they finish their training and enter the stadium. We could do that test. We can have the entire team, all of the staff, all of the auxiliary staff tested within a matter of hours. Would that allow you to convene the games, at least behind closed doors? So he sent off a letter, and within 30 minutes on all of his Israel sports channels, which is not the one that Mark watches, there was this thing, Ben Gurion University set to help the soccer season open up again. Take that example, multiply it by 50, guys and gals, you should be incredibly proud of what we've all been done together. Now, so that's one aspect of the situation. The second aspect of it, which is an unexpected success, which is the story is indicative of, is the fact that we were able to get all of these stories out and into the press. And in a very short period of time, I think this is probably true of Canada as well, with all of your help, PR came to Ben Gurion University in a way that it's never done before. So all of a sudden, on our Facebook page, we've had hundreds of people saying, tell us more about you. this sounds incredible. So this coronavirus crisis, which is a crisis nobody wanted, actually brought to Ben Gurion University people who never knew who we were in the past, both in Israel, who may have known the name, but they didn't know anything about our quality, and overseas. I want to talk a little bit about our students themselves. So at that same time as we launched that task force, we realized that our students had to continue their studies but weren't able to come to the campus. Within a day or so, all of our classes continued online. Now, one of the things that was so incredibly interesting about this, and I heard some of the comments as you were getting online, was that not everybody is computer savvy, not everybody understands Zoom, and particularly if you are a lecturer and you're standing in front of a class and you've been teaching the same way you're teaching this way for 20 or 30 years, all of a sudden to ask you to teach your class electronically on a screen is a challenge. So what did we have? We have students from our student union who were twinned with members of our faculty who were from an older generation, and teaching them how to teach online. So we had a reversal of a situation where instead of the teachers teaching the student, we had the students teach the teachers, and within 2 days, all of our classes were online. I was saying earlier to somebody, not one single course has been stopped as a result of it, and we're now dealing with the last stage of that issue of how are we going to deal with exams so that the students are able to get their credit and move on to the next year. So that's the good news. What is the less good news? The less good news is Israel has suffered, like every other country in the world, or most other countries in the world, a tremendous economic blow from this shutdown. All of our businesses were closed down. We went from 3% unemployment to 27% unemployment in 2 months. Hopefully that will go back once that will go down once the lockdown is completely over. But economically, the country has suffered a tremendous blow. Hopefully in the next few days, we're going to be forming a government for the first time, or a new permanent government, the first time in over a year. And the first action of that government is going to be to look at cutbacks. And we know in the university that our budget, the government portion of our budget is going to be cut dramatically. I don't know the numbers, but Danny, our president, is talking about somewhere between 15 and 20 US million dollars of cutbacks in the next year. Now, that is compounded by the fact that our students, and those of you who've been to the university know this, our students are all earning their tuition fees, earning their rent by working in jobs in the afternoons as waiters or working in stores, etc. All of these businesses closed down as they did everywhere else. Our students lost their jobs. At the same time, the same student has got to pay rent. Although if he was in a university dorm, we actually allowed him to walk away from his contract without any penalty. So that was a bit of a help. But if you're in a private apartment, your landlord still wants the rent. Then the student goes back home. He finds that maybe one or both of his parents are furloughed or they've lost their jobs altogether. And then you say to the student, okay, now it's time to pay tuition. Hey, I don't have the money. I haven't been able to earn the money. I've got nobody to ask for help. Oh, and something else. I've needed to have a fast internet connection in my apartment, which I never had before. I had to lay out some money, etc., etc., etc. All of that means that our students, while we've been able to help them get through the end of this semester, there's a real question about whether they will be able to come back next year, whether we will have the finances to help them with scholarships and all of their assistance that they might need. And we're going to be with Mark, with the staff, reaching out to as many people as possible, saying we were there for the pandemic in terms of the research. Now we need to be here for the recovery. I mean, you're going to be hearing a lot about that in the next few months because it's a real issue. I want to talk a little bit about fundraising, and there's a silver lining here as well. At the beginning of April, there was a single day when if you're the vice president of Ben Gurion University and you get 4 emails, actually 3 emails and a phone call saying the gifts that we intended to give unfortunately, we're putting on hold in the moment. We lost in a single day 4 major gifts of people who said the stock market has crashed. We may need to look at other priorities. And we thought as a university that we were going to be in a free fall situation where, never mind gifts that were in the pipeline of people that we wanted to commit to, but that we would lose active pledges for people that had to cancel. And we went into Pesach in that mindset of who knows what's going to happen in the end. I can tell you that the beginning of this week, on Sunday morning, one of the 4 came back and said, we're able to renew. And by today, the 4th of the 4 called us up and said, we're back on. And so there's the beginning of some optimism as far as that's concerned. People understand, yes, the stock market has taken a hit, but maybe there's been some sort of recovery. And at the same time, the confidence about what the university is able to do has allowed people to say, this is where my priority is. And I want to say 2 more things and then finish. Was that, Simon, was that you saying I have to finish soon? Or the thumbs up? Sorry. Okay,
thumbs up. It was the congratulations on getting those gifts. But you have 2 more minutes to finish.
Okay, so two more comments. Your reality in Canada is, as you know, pretty much similar to the reality all over the world. And BGU is represented certainly in the United States, but in England and France and Switzerland and all the places that you, and maybe some other places you don't know, Mexico, etc. We have been very, very closely involved with our associations throughout the country, throughout the world, excuse me. Many of them had to cancel events, as you did in Montreal. They have an annual fundraising gala that was completely closed down, both in France and in Switzerland. But at the time where this was happening, where we as a university were offering support to all of our supporters, we were able to get 3 new association presidents, people who stood up and said, this is the time. One in Belgium, an amazing guy who hopefully you'll meet very soon. Another one, believe it or not, in Italy, a man who was the chairperson of Carnegie Sod in Italy and is now the president of Ben Gurion University, Italian associate. And the last one, which is most impressive, and as far as I'm concerned, the one that gives me most satisfaction, is in Israel. For the first time in over a decade, BGU Associates of Israel has a new chairman, and he's a man called Yom Tov Samia, who's a major general, who's head of the Southern Command. That what that means is that even in these difficult times, and maybe you could say in spite of these difficult times, we are getting stronger, our reach is getting greater, and that's going to help all of us when we sit around the table and say, how do we help this university? The last thing I want to do is actually a call to action, and this is not a call to action that will cost any of you any money. And that is that on the 17th of May, and I'm sorry that it's taking the format that I'm about to talk about. When we would have met in Beersheba, unfortunately, we're going to be meeting on the screen. So Jack, that means I don't need to get a taxi to get you from Sde-Boker up to Ben Gurion, up to Beersheba. So I'm exempt from that one. No getting up early in the morning, but from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Israel time on Sunday the 17th, which is 11 a.m. Montreal time to 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're going to be having our board of governors, our virtual board of governors. It's not going to be a regular Zoom call. It's going to be an event. We have done some pre-filming. It's going to have some decision making, some nominations, etc. But there'll be all sorts of information about what we have done and our plans for the future. So this call to action is that every single one of you registers, and Mark and Simon can send you the link if you don't have it. Register for that Board of Governors. I think it's going to be an incredible show of support for the university, love for one another, and it's our 50th anniversary. So we will celebrate in person at some time in the future, but at least in the moment we're going to celebrate on the 17th of May.